And what have we learned? After just one weekend of play, well, maybe Kyle Manzardo is the greatest hitter to ever face a lefty. Jonathan India might be lucky to be alive. We'll get into that. And Tanner Bibee's pretty good. Anything I missed? Or we could just play the wrap-up music, get on out of here?
I think we can call it a day. Let's go. It's been great catching up.
I'm actually really enthusiastic. We have a full series now to talk about. I don't know, we joked about it on our Patreon show. What have we learned after one game? What can we extrapolate out based just on vibes? Nothing much has changed in that regard. But I'm so very thankful that we finally have games now to feel like we are going to learn some very key questions in the near future, but also start to... We've been talking either positively or negatively about so many players. We could focus on Kyle Manzardo here, all the things we believe he can do over a full season, but now to just finally get some return on that and to see him have some success, to see him go bombs away in Kansas City, find the fountains a couple of times, big home runs. It's a lot of fun. Looking forward to it.
Yeah, now you just multiply everybody's numbers by 54 instead of by 162.
That still feels a little odd.
Yeah. We can really just... I think if we just go topic by topic, we're just going to hit all of my hot takes from our hot takes episode, where I said Stephen Kwan would finish top 7 in MVP. Well, yeah, if he hits 500, I think he's got a good shot.
You sure he's going to be able to fend off Manzardo?
Gavin Williams, top 5 Cy Young. He looked great. Kyle Manzardo finishing with 60 extra base hits. He's going to cruise past that.
At the All-Star
Guardians
break.
Win the division. I mean, like, this is... I'm just going to sit back here. Playing out just like I said. As always.
What you're telling us is everything you knew in March is what is going to happen by October.
No jinxes.
None whatsoever. Certainly none in regard to the war draft, which I already feel like you've done something. You know, you came away from the war draft feeling like I got the better roster, and then... like half of my team is now experiencing, whether it's intestinal battles of Tanner Bibee unable to start on opening day, Jose Ramirez down for at least one game. Who knows, maybe a little bit more with that wrist. Did you do something to my roster? Do you have pins and needles stuck into dolls under your bed that I need to know about?
Yeah, a little voodoo. You can't see certain bobbleheads behind me, but I've stuck pins into all the players on your team.
I hate you for that. I really don't like that.
Do you know what the reminder that I know I felt over the weekend that is so important for perspective, and just think about, and I'm speaking more to listeners here because this goes for like Discord, Twitter, whatever, social media, people I run into, like the people you're talking to at the bar. What you think is going to happen is not going to happen. This team taught us this last year, and think about what you thought about each game going into it, right? Bibee gets scratched, Lively pitches game 1, and every single person listening to this show said, well, I'm going to start 0-1 now. And what happened? 1-0. Going into game 2, you all thought, oh, well, Gavin Williams on the mound. This is definitely one they win here. And they lose. And going into game 3, no Jose Ramirez. How are they going to score runs? Oh, my God. What's going on? And they win. They always... It's when you think that there's no chance, they figure it out. This has been going on since the start of last season. You know, whether it's losing Shane Bieber or just... I feel like anytime it's like Hedges is in the lineup today and, you know, this person's getting a day off and this is the pitching matchup. Those are the games they score 12 runs, right? Like it never fails. And it took 3 days for all of us to hopefully get 3 reminders that you just can't predict this stupid sport.
Truly not. I mean, Jose Ramirez did nothing in the series, then didn't play. You took 2 out of 3. And the offense, a lot of the series looked pretty darn good. I mean, led by Kyle Manzardo. I think my favorite statistic through the opening weekend is that Manzardo was hitting 800 against lefties, 167 against righties, as we all predicted.
He said he's hit lefties his whole life. Why is anyone doubting him?
Why should we question the man that's 4 for 5 against lefties and just 1 for? Or do we have to start to question? Does he have some issues? Can he hit the righties? Because he's doing all the damage against lefties.
Well, and it's not. How many times have you seen someone when they try to figure out how to hit lefties? It's okay. This pitcher's gonna just throw me junk away, and I'm gonna flail at it. So can I take that slider on the outside part of the plate and just punch it to left field? That's usually a pretty good counter, left on left. Manzardo's like, screw that. It's all extra base hits. Just let me just crush everything a lefty throws at me. So I was trying to figure out like who he reminds me of, because that swing, I know we talked about it the other day, but the swing and everything is so simple, and I don't know if it's the mustache doing part of the lifting here, but like he looks like a player from the 80s. Like, I don't know if there's like Don Mattingly in there, or I know there was the Wade Boggs comparison. Doesn't he just look like...
Yeah.
Like he's going to go rip 3 doubles and then go rip 3 heaters after the game? And like...
Little bit.
Yeah.
The unconventional... The 90s first baseman sluggers were these big, hulking... We're going to hit 35 to 40 bombs on our in our bad years. And you're right. The era before the first baseman were a lot of, hey, that guy could probably hit 320 with 20 home runs and drive in 80 to 100 runs. So, yeah, he's a little bit of a throwback. It was just so encouraging to see him not only hang in there against lefties, but just look like he is in charge against the southpaw. This is not just hanging in to survive and, well, I just got to be good enough so that I stay in the lineup. This is a guy that will do actual damage, and we talked about it on the Patreon show. I feel like that chance for power is growing exponentially. When we first saw him, it looked like a guy. I believe in the 20 home run, maybe 25 home run projections in some of his career years. Why can't he get to more than that? Doesn't he look smart enough to be able to figure out how to... I mean, and to also, at that ballpark, where the wind was doing some crazy things the entire series, didn't matter. He just cut through... Those were legitimate bombs. And when you're finding the fountains out there in Kansas City, especially in April when the wind is blowing in and it's stiff...
And you're not using a torpedo bat?
Dude, we could talk about that, too. Those are legitimate big boy blasts. That's not a guy that, maybe just because he's such a good hitter, he'll hit 20. That looked like a guy that could hit 30. Absolutely.
Yeah, it is Mattingly, by the way, who I was thinking of. I just pulled up a video of him crushing one in the 95 postseason. But it's the bat path, like, it's quick. Like, it looks like a kind of a, I don't even know how to, it's almost like a golf swing. In a way, especially because he keeps both hands on the bat the whole way through and then recoils real quick. I don't know. It's like, I like it. Like, I'm trying to think, if I was a kid, like, I always fell for the guy who had the really smooth, cool looking swing. I don't know if this is that, but like, because I loved Justice and Griffey and Manny, but this is one where, like, I feel like it would be fun to mimic in the backyard.
It's unique. It stands out among his peers, and not only in the swing, but also in the load and the build-up, and how he's a little jittery and in the box, and he's just getting it all out before he just unleashes the vicious cut.
But then it's like, it's business, right? And again, like, it might be the mustache, I don't know, but it's just like he's on a business trip, and then he just crushes it, both hands on the bat, throws it away, goes around the bases looking like, all right, I just finished my 9 to 5. Now time to go home to the wife and kids. Like, it's, I don't know.
Yeah, it's been fun. I like it. It's fun to see some of our thoughts backed up just in play. Now, of course, we're going to get super enthusiastic about guys that are really good to start the year, and the guys that aren't as good but maybe have a track record, you sweep that under the rug. Give them time. But even for younger players, I feel like confidence is a factor for every young player. And even the Rockies, one of the reasons why it feels like they gave up on Nolan Jones is because they felt like his confidence was waning. This is a guy that 1 year ago didn't look like his confidence was shaken at all, and they were willing to give up on him to get a Tyler Freeman because partially they didn't think his confidence was where it needed to be. And so for Kyle Manzardo, he had the great postseason. He had some big hits in the postseason, so you have that to fall back on. But then just to start in a great place, to feel good, and to not – I know one weekend is not going to fix this, but when you're not looking up at the scoreboard and it looks 167, 202, and you're chasing the statistics on the scoreboard that it takes you a couple of weeks to get over that bad start, I just feel like for someone that doesn't have a significant track record, even one that I think is mentally in the right place to be able to handle a slump, nothing but positive to me.
The April in Cleveland narrative where young players just can't perform, and as a team, like, we all have to wait for the weather to warm up because for some reason it's only the Guardians who can't hit before Memorial Day. Like, maybe it helps that the weather was warm the first two games. And San Diego and Anaheim, the weather will be fine. Like, you don't have to worry about what you're probably going to have to worry about when you come back home. And it's 45 degrees and windy, but it's like, you're right. Like, that those narratives don't have to exist. And it's so easy to be beholden to them and just wait on the weather to warm up, and that will be the magical elixir. Like, it doesn't have to work like that. So I think you're right. Like, how nice it is when you start at that high point and that it's in your mind, you can do this, instead of it's like May 12th and you're like, just haven't had it yet. And I thought I could hit, but I don't have evidence of that yet here. And what do I do? And it's like, no, you started the season like this. That's with you the whole way. I think that makes a difference. And just as a lineup, like, this team knows. We went over the opening day scores last episode, and how many of those were like 2-0, 2-1, and you're not having like how many guys in this lineup hit home runs already? Like, Schneemann already went yard. Arias went yard. I mean, it's these guys know they can do this, and it doesn't have to be that early season slog. You can get off to a good start. I think they did that last year, just in general as a team, when they went 7-2 on that road trip. And Stephen Vogt talks all the time about how that was just, that gave them confidence. Like, you knew from the get-go what you're capable of, instead of searching for it, chasing it. So just a great start for the offense. And as you said, even before Jose Ramirez got hurt, he hadn't done anything. So you're not just relying on one guy. You still wait. Like, Lane Thomas is going to do more. Carlos Santana is going to do more. So there's reason to be optimistic here. It's 3 games, sure. But isn't it nice to actually have position players to talk about instead of like, all right, they scored 4 runs and
yeah,
where do they go from here?
I like where we have to hit the brakes because it's 3 games, but guys are going to come back to earth, as opposed to it's 3 games. Guys are going to heat up eventually. I like the scenario where we're having to talk ourselves back instead of having to push everybody forward, or at least maybe not off the ledge. And for all the positives I felt like we found in the offense, they also didn't – they could have had a lot more based just on the process, I felt. This wasn't a case where they had a good weekend thanks to a bunch of bloops. And, I mean, they had some bloops and that was mixed in. But the process was so good, they were rewarded for it throughout the series.
Team sacrifice fly.
That's part of it. And that's part of the offense. I mean, they're not going to be able to sit back and bomb all the time. You can't do that. So I was pleased to see some of that, some of still advancing the runner and getting the guy in from third base and taking the shot early in the season when even the broadcast was talking about it's April. You think everybody's arms are accurate and outfielders going to be able to unleash the way that they would in the middle of July or August. So take the shot now, especially. And also, they've got good base runners, too. You know, Carlos Santana, we keep talking about. He's 38, 39 years old, but he doesn't move like that. That's a testament for how well he keeps himself in shape. So when he's on third base and there's a fly ball to medium deep outfield, he might be able to score, at least make it close.
Do
But
you move like a 38, 39
I
year old?
didn't move like that at 18 or 19. That never has happened in my life. The process was so good all weekend. We saw extremely good at-bats. We saw working the walk. And I know the walk rate is like 10th best in baseball right now at 11.1. Felt like they walked even more than 11.1% of the time. But they were able to take pitches like the Arias one, where he just takes that ball, which we've seen him do a million times, it feels like. We wish it was a million times. Taking that ball to right field that's on the outside part of the plate. But beyond that, even in the opening game, we saw off-speed pitches where how many times did we see them trying to hook a ball, trying to pull a ball, and in that opener, they were willing to take that off-speed, breaking stuff, and they were willing to use the opposite field. And when you do that, and when you prove to pitchers you're willing to do that, that's when you start to earn some pitches on the inside, which then you can turn on and do damage on. They were earning themselves, I felt like, some great opportunities. They didn't always cash in. They oftentimes felt like they were lacking that big base hit. But the process underneath, if that continues throughout the entire season, keeping the opposition to a point where they got to throw 70 pitches through 4 innings, and it's a slog to get through the top of the lineup all the way to the bottom, and everybody contributes a good at-bat, and they foul off the tough pitches, and you try to live to see one that you can drive. They do that the entire season. This offense is going to be okay. I don't know they're going to be one of the best, but I think they're going to score enough runs that they're going to be more than capable of keeping this team in contention. And if there's more than that in there, then maybe they are a pretty good offense. I'm not going to make that statement after 3 games, but still, I love the process in the opening weekend.
I think we need to, this is always hard to do, but give more credit to the coaching staff. Did we appreciate enough just what they accomplished in year 1? Kind of thrown together, a few holdovers from Terry Francona's staff, otherwise a new group, a first-time manager who had very limited coaching experience, and he's putting together a staff of some people he knows, some people he doesn't. And from day 1, they looked like they knew what they were doing and putting people in the right positions to succeed. That's the most important thing you can do as a coaching staff, is making sure the right people have the right assignments that they can handle. And now this team has so many meetings, and like everybody jokes about how many meetings they have. You never see the catchers before games because they are going from one office to another office to another office. But you see it pays off. Like, they're so well prepared, and the strategy, you just said it. I mean, that's clearly they're looking at this lineup in spring training and saying, how can we squeeze the most out of it? And I thought, you're right, the approach against 3 really good pitchers, by the way. 2 dudes who finished in the top 4 in the Cy Young voting, and Michael Wacha, who had a really nice year last year. And Lugo and Wacha in particular, they always have really good walk rates. You know, they're always in the strike zone. Lugo throws like 12 different pitches. I don't know how you even prepare for him. And they made those guys work. They made Cole Reagan's work. And an offense like this, where I would normally say, like, you're not just waiting around for the 3-run homer, but maybe this is like a lineup full of boppers now. I don't know. But a lineup like this where they're going to capitalize on mistakes, you just want to give yourself enough chances to where Kansas City's either going to make mistakes, whether it's the pitcher or defense, or you can string something together, right? And they didn't have that big inning, and they kind of had some situations where they didn't capitalize, whether it was base running or just not timely hitting. Like it felt, I know they came back in game 1, and you could argue that could have gone either way. They certainly could have won game 2. Like, they had chances offensively in that game. So I just think they gave themselves enough. Like, there weren't a ton of just 1, 2, 3 innings on 11 pitches. And, you know, we knew, as you pointed out, your favorite new stat, supplanting oopsie is that just pestering or whatever, where Kwan and Ramirez are
Peskiness.
rank
Can't
one
wait
and
to see it.
rank 1 and 2.
I can't wait to see that.
And the question is, can you get 3 through 9 to pester pitchers too? And I thought they did a really good job of that. And I just think when we think about like this team and like what they're going to be this year, I don't know that we ever mentioned, maybe once or twice, but like we don't mention enough the benefit of the doubt that we gave Terry Francona and that staff every year. It takes more than one season to earn that, but I do feel like we should at least be open-minded to the fact that maybe these guys are going to find ways to get the most out of the talent they have, just like Terry Francona and his staff usually did too.
I think we mentioned that throughout the offseason, that they provide a bit of a difference where other teams maybe don't feel like they have that edge. They should feel like. Now, on the pitching side, we've been giving them that credit for years. Maybe on the hitting side, they're starting to discover some of that. But it felt like the thing that a hitting coach can actually impact, which is patience and discipline, which pitches you're supposed to swing at, being armed and prepared with the knowledge of what a guy attacks with and having the right game plan for that. Those are things that I do give a hitting coach credit for. We often talk, in development, and who do you give credit to? How much goes to the player? How much do you take away from the coach? We never really know. This opening series felt like something you give the coaches credit for, because they all felt extremely prepared for the pitching they faced.
It's funny. I think I would be curious what % of the fan base can name the Guardians hitting coach, because it's like, if you're Grant Fink, the longer you go without most people knowing your name, the better, right? Like, usually 3 games in, I feel like there would have been some calls for fire Chris Valaika, fire Ty Van Berkelio, and we haven't had that yet. So kudos to the unnamed hitting coach. May he remain anonymous for as long as possible.
Yeah, you don't want to go to the Browns route, which the Browns route is somebody on the sidelines of a spring training of an exhibition game usually catches somebody's eye. Look at that guy. He looks funny on the sidelines. And then he becomes everyone's hero until eventually you live long enough to become the villain and everyone wants him fired every single week. Avoid that if you're a Guardians coach. On the pitching side, we talked a lot about the hitting game plan. Pitching game plan I thought was interesting. I don't know if I'm reading too much into it. Maybe I am. Maybe it's just a credit to the Royals hitters, and it's just how you attack them as opposed to a team like the Yankees, which hits the Guardians' total of home runs so far in 3 games in 1 inning so far with those bats. But it felt like they weren't really chasing as many strikeouts in this series. I don't know if that was, obviously Lively is not one that's going to be chasing strikeouts anyhow. But even with Williams and Bibee, oftentimes it would feel like if they would get to 2 strikes, instead of trying to waste 3 pitches and it getting to a deep count, it was just keep attacking. Even if you're going with secondary stuff, still stay close to the zone. Maybe I'm reading too much into it, and it was just the pitchers weren't on that day to get strikeouts, but they were still on enough that they were going to power their way through the 5th and into the 6th. But it didn't feel like they were chasing as many strikeouts, and if that is a thing, I have to wonder if is that an early season thing where you want the starters to chew up some innings and get into the season and not have those deep counts and long innings, and that can wear on an arm, certainly April. So maybe it's just attack. And as the season starts to unfold, we'll unpack more of the strikeouts and search for those. And certainly some of it's going to be opponent dependent. But that's what it felt like to me in the early season. They weren't trying to chase the strikeouts in the way that I think they might be able to as this unfolds.
Okay, well, so the Manzardo versus lefties is your favorite stat from the weekend. Mine is the strikeouts leaderboard for this team. Do you know who leads the team in strikeouts? It's 2 guys at the top.
Oh, God. Hunter Gaddis.
Yes. And Ben Lively.
I just said Lively's not a strikeout guy.
3 strikeouts apiece. It's hilarious. If you like, what would the odds have been for Ben Lively to lead the rotation or lead the team in strikeouts? I need to see more. Kansas City they're not quite 2022 Guardians contact crazy, but they're a team that makes a ton of contact. So that could be part of it. Just don't chase strikeouts because you're just going to waste a lot of pitches if you do that. That might be a team where that thought process comes to mind. But I need to see more. I think it makes a lot of sense for this team. We saw this a few years ago. Remember, Shane Bieber had come back from injury one year. It might have been, maybe it was 2023. I think his strikeout rate was down. Or maybe it was the year before that. And he even said, he was like, thinking about what's important and how to make it through a season. And if you can get quick outs, that is the best way to go through this. Like 2020, it's understandable if he fell in love with strikeouts a little bit. And I think as that season went on, I know it was only 12 starts. I remember a start, I think it was the Brewers, where it was pretty clear he was chasing strikeouts because the stuff was just so nasty. And he was at like 5 1/3 innings and he was at like 105 pitches, but he had like 12 strikeouts. Like little Danny Salazar-esque. And when you can be efficient and not care about that strikeout total, and I think the way, like Tanner Bibee, that first inning, I think he threw 20 pitches and then maybe 16 in the second inning. And after that, it was like 8, 10. And he talked about just how when you can just get quick outs, like there is nothing. It's better for your defense. They're not standing out there. It's better for your offense. They get right back out there. And obviously it's better for you. You last longer in the game. He has not outwardly said a specific number. I think he really wants to throw 200 innings this year. Or more than anything, just like he mentioned how that innings total year by year with him has increased. And last year it was like 173 maybe. And I think if the natural progression would be, 190, 200, and just, I think everybody wants to take pressure off the bullpen. Like that's the other thing. So if these guys can last longer in the game, and I know Bibee threw 84 pitches, obviously he was dealing with stuff earlier in the week. He dropped a little bit of weight. And so I think a first start where the target was about 85 pitches, that's understandable. I think Cole Reagans was right around there in his first start. You're not pushing guys to 105 quite yet, but
he didn't like that.
But these guys made
he did not like that.
These guys made 85 look easy. Gavin Williams was cruising until that sixth inning. So I'm curious to see if this is a strategy for one series or if this is a mindset moving forward. It's probably all of the above, honestly. Like it's if you have the stuff where you can get guys to make weak contact, that is a great tool to have in your pocket.
I would not be surprised if it is an early season thing too. I think opponent plays a huge factor because you maybe don't fear that they're going to be able to use the big ballpark the way that a team that has a bunch of massive hulking sluggers would. Like this, we'll be interested to see what happens against San Diego. Different style of offense. Also, we're talking about still a ballpark that can have a reputation as tough to hit in too. But I think you take advantage of that big outfield in Kauffman Stadium. You try to chase the fly balls, and they have a couple of pitchers there in Bibee and Williams that can certainly get their fair number of fly balls. So take advantage of it. They did some in this series as well. I'll be really curious to watch the progression of how Bibee uses his pitches because we see him gaining more confidence in using that two-seamer or sinker, however it's phrased in Savant. But utilizing that, it's still a pitch that he's using primarily against righties as opposed to lefties. Lefties, it was all pretty much fastball changeup. And everybody else, he's using everything else fastball and none of the changeup. So as we get more opponents, as we see more of the game plan, I will be curious to see how he fits that two-seamer into his repertoire of a pitch that does something a little bit different than the cutter and the fastball or the four-seamer. Get a different, carve the plate in a different way. And as he gains more confidence in it, I love the one where he had the comeback on it, and it caught the outside corner and got the strike 3 on it.
He
Had
couldn't
called
keep the
strikes on that.
smile from spreading across his face, too. Like, I think I have a new toy here.
And you don't have to use it a ton.
Mm-hmm.
But against the righties, when you've got that comeback action, we know he's going to be looking to slice it glove side against the righty, right? So you're up there with 2 strikes, and you see a ball on the outside corner. Aren't you going to think, well, this is probably going to be a cutter, slider, something that's moving away from the barrel of my bat? And so if you're not prepared for it and you give up on it, that ball, if it has enough comeback, catches the corner. But if you do that only a couple of times in the game, you get a couple of called strikes on that comeback, then it's enticing enough that it makes the slider and the cutter and everything else that's moving away from the barrel, it makes that play up too. That's why he's introducing that, or at least trying to develop it as much as he is. I can understand why he wants that in his bag of tricks.
Yeah, I don't know if maybe it existed 20, 30 years ago and we just didn't have a way to show it, I guess. But it's amazing how the advances in technology and metrics and everything have allowed pitchers to basically just design their arsenal exactly how they want it and figure out how to get there. Like you know what the final product could look like, and you can just chart your course to get to it. Because these pitchers want one thing moving away to righties, one thing moving back to righties. It's all based on tunneling, and Pitching Ninja always has those videos that make it seem impossible for hitters to ever make contact. And so it's amazing how a pitcher, how often did pitchers tinker with this sort of stuff and implement brand new pitches and know exactly what shape and what arm action and when to use it? I know they probably did, but it's just so much simpler to quantify everything now.
Well, I think that's the key. You don't have to waste as much time.
Yes.
Now you make one tweak, and you can see within 10 pitches in the bullpen if it's moving the way that you want. And if it's not, you don't have to waste time on that.
And so Bibee gets to the major leagues, and he sees what works. And he has 2 years of evidence of this worked, this didn't, this worked, then didn't, then I adjusted something and it did. And he knows now, okay, year 3, what am I missing? And he can go attack in the offseason and figure out the pitch and strategize with 74 different pitching coordinators and coaches and analysts. And it's fascinating. And you see a lot of the sinker or whatever you want to call it, and every pitcher is going to have different movement profiles on it. But that's a lot of people have been saying for a couple years now that it's going to make a comeback. And that one, I think it was Michael Garcia at the plate, and even he was like, "I didn't know you'd had that in your bag. What? Where did that come from?"
Or at least confident enough that you could throw it for strikes. So you got 3 called strikes on that 2-seamer, and we'll see if that continues to be a weapon against righties. Does he use it at all against lefties? Maybe underneath their hands and kind of work that in. It'll be fun to see how he gains more confidence in that and how the rest of the repertoire plays off of that. But it's the fun part to dream on, because you're seeing growth and from a pitcher we already loved as he was. Then we get to the other end of the spectrum, the stuff that we do sweep under the carpet, and we don't pay attention to that. Part of it is the bullpen. It wasn't all their fault in this series, but they weren't as strong as we've certainly seen them, saw them last year for much of the year. Clase. I only bring this up because it became a bigger deal on social media than I think even it was in the moment. Now, it was a big deal to Jonathan India to get one up underneath the jaw, the chin, wherever that caught him. Thankfully, it caught mostly helmet. This is not a thing for a guy that throws 99 to 102. It's not a thing that has happened often with him, where he's drilling people up near the face. I don't want to speak too much to his intent because I'm not him. I would be I would be confused why he's trying to hit India with 2 outs, with one of the best players in baseball on deck. Clase, I don't think he's trying to fool around right now. I think he's just trying to gain some steam, some positive momentum into the season. I don't really think he's trying to put hitters on base. But again, I'm not him, so I can't speak. Maybe there's something we don't know with India and the players, and I really cannot speak to that. To me, watching his body language didn't look like a guy that was trying to drill somebody. Even afterwards, he's apologizing to the dugout. Now, saying that, I understand why India would be pissed. I'd be pissed too. Even if I can understand that someone didn't do it on purpose, I'm still going to be pissed at you that it happened. So I understand that. I understand all the Royals afterwards being upset about it. You defend your teammate. I have no problem with that. I really don't think he did it on purpose, but I thought Rick Manning said something really interesting, and I know you've been on the edge of your seat because I texted it to you, and at that point you didn't have the broadcast on, so you don't know what he said. He said, hitters often, that doesn't happen much with hitters, with him. You have confidence that he's going to be in the strike zone a lot, and that is what enables you to just be up there and be comfortable to go get that pitch outside that's 3, 4, 5, 6 inches off the plate at 99 to 100 because you have the confidence that he's going to be in the strike zone. I'm not suggesting that Emmanuel Clase needs to start hitting more people in the face, but maybe that is part of the equation here that we're not talking enough about. We were talking about chasing strikeouts and being in the zone, but maybe also having enough waste pitches inside that back hitters off the plate to at least give them something else to think about might be sort of necessary to introduce. I don't know how you do that and not also occasionally drill people, and that's part of what would make it scary for me if I had the ability to throw 100, but maybe that is something to consider. He needs to start busting those hitters more inside so they get less comfortable extending the arms across the plate to go get that cutter.
We talked about this the other day, but that is a big issue with... We've always wondered, like, why does this guy not have an elite strikeout rate? Why does everybody make contact against him? And that is a huge part of it, is his command is so good that it's a safe bet if you swing, if you gear up, he's going to find the strike zone. And if you know he's going to be in the strike zone, any hitter can make contact with 99, 100. Especially if it's, I know his stuff isn't straight, but it's not a slider, right? So I think the big thing, and we mentioned how going into the 2023 season, he was so good in 22, and they're like, yeah, we're nitpicking here, but if you could throw more cutters up in the strike zone, like at the letters, I think that would help you, because that's a really hard pitch to make solid contact against, and hitters might just leave it alone because they feel like, well, I'm not gonna hit that solidly, so maybe it won't be a strike. And he struggled to do that, and especially when he's ahead in the count, that's the key. When you're 0-2, 1-2, that's when you want to bust somebody inside, throw it a little high, waste a pitch or two, and try to get them to chase. And that just hasn't been the case. And I referenced that outing against the Mets from 2023, where he blew a 2-run lead in the 10th inning. And he had Francisco Alvarez down 0-2 and then just left a cutter over the plate. And it's like, can you waste one? Can you throw a couple sliders, bury them in the dirt, something? Like, you don't have to just be in the strike zone every time, because then they expect you to be in the strike zone every time, and they just gear up for it. And then he had Nimmo down 0-2, gave up a single on the next pitch, and then he had Lindor. That was actually a first pitch strike. But it wasn't putting people away, because people expect that you're just going to be in the strike zone all the time, and that's when you can get beat. And it doesn't have to be, you're not worried about a home run. That's the other thing. Like, guys don't, it's aside from Aaron Judge and Giancarlo Stanton, like, it's really hard to take him deep, right? So it's even more imperative that he's able to waste a couple pitches or move to different parts of just off the plate, because the worst case scenario here is like, you're going to give up a single or a double in the gap or something. So if you can get a little bit more swing and miss, if you can be a little more unpredictable, I think it would go a long way. So I do think you might be onto something, or Rick Manning might be onto something, where he's trying to prove that he can be more unpredictable, whether that's just targeting up and in or something else. And then he just missed with that pitch while doing that. Like, that would make a lot of sense to me. But this is clearly somebody trying to work through the best approach. Like, the stuff itself looks good. I have no doubt that he'll turn in another good season. But I do think he's toying with, like, if it's sequencing or location or whatever it is, what is the best strategy to not just get outs on that particular day, but maybe change a little bit of their reputation moving forward.
I hope that he's not fearful of going inside because of this. I could see a scenario. We were just theorizing in our previous show. I said, well, maybe he's just not. We talk about his command being really good. I always forget the difference between command and control. One is one thing. Command is just throwing it in the strike zone. Control is being able to pinpoint exactly where you want it. So within the strike zone, or be able to hit a spot specifically. Or maybe I have that reversed. Either way, I think he's really good at throwing strikes. But I'm not as convinced that he's as good at hitting spots as some pitchers are. And I'm wondering, I had wondered in the past show if maybe he doesn't have the faith to be able to hit spots specifically outside the zone, doesn't want to get into a 3-2 count, get into deep counts because he's wasting, and then doesn't have the faith to be able to maybe not put that runner on base. But I also wonder, in pitching inside, is it a fear of, I throw 100, I don't want to hurt guys, and I don't know if I can live in there and not occasionally avoid hitting somebody's wrist or up and in and hitting their head or hitting a part of their body. And I don't want guys to lose time because I'm pitching inside, because I don't have the pinpoint control to be able to put it exactly inside where I want. I just know how to throw strikes. I got that box and I can get it within there. My stuff's good. It doesn't really have to matter what quadrant I get it in because it's going to be good enough. I'll get the results that way. So I'm wondering, is there some fear there pitching inside that living at the velocity he doesn't want to start drilling people, get that reputation as being a guy that's going to be a headhunter or something like that. This is me just projecting. Like, I don't know. I have no idea. This is from afar trying to theorize how a pitcher as good as he is, for the velocity and the stuff to be as good as he is, to not basically be a guy that never gives up a run the entire season.
This is... You just made me remember facing my best friend who went to a different school when I was growing up, and I was really erratic. This was in middle school, maybe. I was so erratic that the moms would sing Wild Thing when I came into a game, and facing my best friend, we both are, we can't stop grinning because we've dreamed of facing each other in a game before, and unintentionally just drilled him in the cup. And I remember, what you made me think of was, I was so afraid to pitch after that. I can't, can we just aim toward the outside batter's box or third base or something? I can't throw it anywhere near a hitter. I feel so bad, but yeah, nothing to do with anything. It's just fond memories.
I mean, and looking at the body language after he did it, does that look like someone that really wants to drill somebody?
No,
maybe he's just a great actor and he's got me fooled. But
you're up by 4. You're trying to get out of Kansas City and go to your next stop, and you've got Bobby Witt and Vinny Pasquantino and Salvador Perez coming up to bat. It makes no sense. Let's use logic here.
And again, I don't blame India for being pissed off. I would be pissed off too if I got 100 miles per hour in my face. Doesn't mean that he's necessarily trying to do that, but probably introducing more of at least making hitters uncomfortable. For as good as that stuff is, the hitter should never be comfortable up there. Should never be comfortable. And so I hope he doesn't view this as, now I really can't go in there because if I hit another person, what are people going to think about me then? I hope it doesn't live in the back of his mind that he can't go in there and bust some people in on the wrists. And if it leads to a few more hit by pitches, I don't want anybody to get hurt, but I also want this guy to pitch as well as we know that he can. We'll see. Speaking of hurts and injureds and wrists and Jose, what are we thinking with Jose? Because I think if you asked him, he probably is playing they're holding him back. Thankfully, they didn't need him to come off the bench and pinch hit or anything like that. But my concern stems from this is a guy that does have lingering hand, wrist things in the past. Thumb, am I catching all the body parts that maybe have been hurt at some point?
Yeah, I was surprised that they announced a sprain immediately during the game. Usually it's like, oh, they have knee discomfort. And then you find out the next day that they have to have the leg amputated. And this was, so to come out with a sprain right off the bat, I just assumed worst case scenario, injured list here, and you'll see him in 6 weeks. But from the get-go, Vogt was like, yeah, he wants to play tomorrow. So I'm going to have to pin him down and prevent that from happening. But this is tough. Like, I'm not a doctor. The slide was really awkward. It's I think we've all done something like that, whether you're rolling an ankle or somehow you just get your I don't know, your hand caught under you.
Don't do it. I don't even want to think about it.
But swinging a bat, I mean, you could see it in his at bat in the fifth. He took a swing, fouled off a pitch, and immediately let go. The anti Kyle Manzardo, and that's when you knew. I mean, I think that signaled to everybody in the dugout, he's not right. And then he came in and was like, yeah, something's not right here. But I don't know. This is why they say day to day.
I mean, you got to save him from himself. I really don't doubt that he could go out there and play. My biggest fear is that it's going to create a bigger issue, or it's going to create some bad habits. For a guy that his hands and his wrists are as important to hitting as it is to Jose, and in the past has had little small injuries cut into his production, not bad enough to ever take him off the field, but something that lingers for a while. I don't want him to be feeling this into May and June because he decided he needs to play at the beginning of the season. I don't want him to go on the injured list. I can't tell him to go on the injured list because I'm not him and I'm not the doctors. I'm not looking at x-rays and MRIs. But I will say I have no problem if you got to sit him down. And maybe the only way to do that is to say, we're going to run this through with somebody else on the roster and give you a week or two to just rest that.
You've seen the schedule coming up?
Okay. But I've also seen
it's
the remaining 159.
No, I'm saying
curious.
Let him – you play the Padres, but let him miss series against the Angels and White Sox. You should still be able to win those.
I don't want this to be a lingering thing is the point I think everybody has here, and I'm sure the Guardians have too, and the point they've probably stressed that Vogt had to stress to him too. You don't have some cool new bat to swing, so...
Why don't you go tell him? Are you volunteering?
Your bat doesn't look like a torpedo yet, so... You remember the old Mark McGwire toy bats? Where it had almost the air inside? I saw someone put together a meme of the Yankees. This is the Yankees using that bat in these games.
I mean, their numbers are absurd. It's kind of hilarious.
You want to give a quick shout out to the email you got here before we wrap things up?
Yeah, I do. So this was really cool. I hope I'm saying the name correctly. Johannes G, we'll say. He and his buddy Benji are lifelong Cleveland sports fans from Austria, the country.
Oh, Austria. Well, good day, mate. Throw another shrimp on the bobby.
Nope. Just Austria.
Oh, okay.
Not Australia.
Okay.
They both played several years in Austria's top league and national team. So these guys are a big deal. And they love the Guardians. And even more than that, they love us. No, they do love the Godcast, and they love the war draft. They did their own war draft.
Yes,
all of you should do your own war drafts with your significant others or whatever. And they also created a spreadsheet so that we can keep track in real time of our war draft. So should we do that now? Or maybe
I do love being able to check it every single day. That's fun. But there was also something fun about forgetting completely who was on my team and then checking it halfway through the year and then towards the end of the year. And it was like a surprise. It was always a surprise that I felt so good about my roster after the draft. And they weren't producing once the season started.
Yeah, I kind of like it to be a surprise. I like to have a general feeling of where things might stand, but not truly know.
But while I'm not sure if I like being able to check it every single day, I can tell you I love that they did this. I love that they have their own war draft. So good luck to their war draft specifically. And hopefully Zach doesn't jinx any of them by putting a doll of whoever you drafted under his bed with pins and needles and whatever else you're doing.
You do have Kyle Manzardo.
I do. Were you doing a little celebration for the Gabriel Arias home run, knowing you drafted him late?
I can't believe that we did not talk about him today. You must want to talk about him for 45 minutes later in the week.
Patreon.com/Selby'sGodcast. Find out.